All right, looks like we're live on Twitch. Good morning, everyone. We're just getting started here. I'm going to start a few minutes early because we had some technical difficulties last time, and I just want to make sure everything's working today. And we'll get started right at the top of the hour. So just hang out and welcome. Hey, Victoria. I'm good, Victoria. How are you doing? Beetlejuice is on sabbatical. We get a sabbatical every 5 years, and he's celebrating, I believe, his 10th, or at least 10th or 15th year at Adobe, 15th year probably. And he's on sabbatical, so he's out from the time he left through January, I believe. So hopefully we'll see him back soon. He may occasionally do one from his own channel too, but he's gone. Having a good time on vacation, hopefully. All right. Looks like we're all analyzed here, getting ready to kick things off in 1 minute. Thanks for watching me here. Check something on Twitter. And also, I'm streaming this live on YouTube simultaneously. So, this is kind of a test day. So, I'll be looking at the chat. If I answer a question, you're like, hey, I don't see that in the chat, it's because I answered it from a different chat. So, I'll have two chat windows open, both for YouTube and for Twitch. And by my Apple Watch here, it's telling me it's time to start the show. So, with that said, if you're just joining me just now, my name is Terry White. I'm the worldwide design and photography evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure to spend the next 2 hours with you talking about photography workflows and talking about, in this case in particular today, We're going to talk about various ways to get your images online from a photographer standpoint. Now, of course, there are all kinds of social media sites out there. Social media sites that let you post to like Facebook and Instagram and 500px and Flickr and the list goes on and on and on. But today we're going to concentrate primarily on your own web presence, whether it's your own website, telling your story with a particular photos using Adobe Slate. We're going to talk about the new web version of Slate. So we're going to talk about lots of ways to do lots of things today. So if you're joining late or if you're joining later, you may have missed something. You'll have to go back and watch the replay because I can't constantly recap everything for someone who just came in. Now, if you are watching the replay, if you are watching the video on demand, I'm now projecting myself into the future. If you're in the future and you're watching this on demand or the replay, I'm going to occasionally stop whatever I'm doing and I'm going to do this. And what I'm doing over here now is I'm looking at both chat windows just to make sure I haven't missed anything. So, for example, there's someone who said hi on YouTube. It's GMMKK. Hi, how's it going? And I'm now going to look at the Twitch chat. Just a lot of people are chiming in saying hello. So I see Victoria. I see Nil Sinho. I see Anthropotics, if I said that correctly. Hey, what's going on? Alpha 12 125, what's up? Star Crunch, good morning. And who did I miss? That was it. So I'm basically going to stop, look over. Won't necessarily say hi all the time, but I will definitely look over to see if there are any questions about something I'm doing, something I'm about to do, or something I haven't done yet. Since you can't see the chat on the video on demand, I will try my best to remember to repeat their question as I'm answering it because you won't see the question. So I'll do my best to do that. Let me check one more thing here just to make sure we're good to go. And everything looks like it's streaming and performing well. YouTube looks good. Got a few people watching on YouTube already. Welcome, YouTube. Let me go over to Twitch here and let's see what's going on Twitch. Got a good number of people watching on Twitch already this morning. So again, good morning, welcome. My name is Terry White, the Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure today to spend the next 1 hour, 57 minutes with you on workflows for photographers. Today in particular, we're going to be talking about workflows around putting your images online. So, what I would love to see in the chat, and for the video on demand people, I'll relay this back to you, but what I'd love to see in the chat, either on YouTube or on Twitch, tell me if you're a photographer. So just say, I'm a photographer and I have a website. Or I'm a photographer and I don't have a website yet. So let's put that in the chat right now. And let's see what we get. All right, I see one person that says, I'm a photographer and I have a website on Twitch. All right. And thanks, Eric, on YouTube for liking my videos. Any other photographers? I know there's got to be at least more than one of you out there with a website or without one. A film photographer with no website. Okay, we'll address that today, hopefully. Any other people want to chime in? All right, here we go. Photographer, no website. Sysadmin who manages websites. Good enough. Laz on YouTube, a photographer without a website. All right, so good. We have a fair number of people without websites. And this will definitely help you out, I think, quite a bit. So let's start with the bulk of it. We're going to start with the website portion of it, and then we'll go from there. So what I want to do here is I'm going to close this window to kind of cut down my bandwidth use. There we go. And now things should be running cool. Okay, I'm a photographer and have a SmugMug website. Great. That's certainly another way to do it. I'm a photographer and I have a website. Victoria, you can't be on both chats at the same time. But congratulations for dual watching. All right. And also, it lets me know the YouTube place is working because you're in both spots. All right. And you're a photographer with or without a website on YouTube? I just see I'm a photographer. All right. You can make a website for you if you want. That's awesome. There are people offering their services now on Twitch. Okay, so without a website. All right, I was just waiting for that last comment. So let's kick things off. First, just because we're starting early in the morning and people usually start to really pile in 30 minutes late or a half hour late for some reason, I'm going to do the bulk of it up front, and then we can save the end or the last half hour for miscellaneous ways to put things on the website. But since I know a lot of people from my previous broadcasts come in, I won't say late, but later, I'm going to do something first in preparation to get images ready, and then we'll start the process of building the website. All right, so what I'm going to do is here, let me switch so you can actually see what I'm doing here. There we go. All right, what I'm going to do is I've got Lightroom CC open here. And with Lightroom CC open, I have some images, one of which is a travel photo that I would love to put on the web. Whether I put it on a custom website, whether I put it as part of a gallery, whether I put it on social media, no matter what I want to do, I need this image to be ready so that it's ready to go at all times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, well, first let me show you what this image is about. If I go to my full screen view, you can see that this is actually me photographing up inside of a church in Denmark. I was using, I think, either a wide angle or maybe a fisheye lens. I think this was my fisheye. And I took this several years ago. And while that shot looks good, from a lighting perspective, I wanted it to look better. So what I did was I put my camera on bracket mode to do a bracketed exposure of 3 images. So that's one image, that's kind of a medium exposure. That's the second image, that's kind of a darker exposure. And that's the third image where it's kind of blown out. And what I can do now is put those 3 images together to make what's called an HDR, or high dynamic range image. Hey Samantha, how's it going? Samantha just joined us on YouTube. And Lillian, amateur photographer with a 500px account. Awesome. All right, so what we're going to do is take those 3 images, and now this is a feature that's actually built into Lightroom. So I'm going to just right click on those 3 images selected together, and I'm going to do what's called a photo merge HDR. Now that's also Control H for an HDR, or if you took images side by side or up, you can do or vertically, you could do a photo merge panorama. So HDR and panorama made its way into the latest versions of Lightroom, whether it's Lightroom CC or Lightroom 6. I'm going to say merge HDR, and that's going to bring up ooh, that's a weird one. Why is that photo in particular read only? Let me go resolve, well, maybe I don't have to resolve it. Let's see what happens. All right, it did it, but now I'm kind of questioning, did it do all of them? Because one of them it complained that was in a read only mode for some reason. And although we only need to read it, here, let me try that one more time. I just want to see which one of these 3 it was complaining about. Let's do photo merge HDR. And then what that means is that it's on a volume that's locked. So it was 283, it's the first one. And let me turn off my notifications on this device. There we go. Okay, so 283 for whatever reason is on a locked volume, which again, here, let me do this. I'm going to cancel out of this, and I'm going to go resolve this issue. So first and foremost, I'm going to select, I'm going to select this photo and I'm going to say, show it to me in the operating system. Show it to me in the Finder. And that way I can go see where it is or why it's read only. All right, it's not on a locked volume. Let's check the image itself. The image itself doesn't say it's locked, which is even weirder. But let's do this. Let's take these 3 images and let's move them to a different spot. That way I should have the images in a spot that's okay. So I'm just going to move them to a folder called test. And now that is physically moving them wherever they were to a different drive, to a different folder. So that is one of the ways that you can move images without having to move them in the operating system. You can move them right in Lightroom. All right, let me try it one more time. And it could be something's just wrong with that one image, but it seemed to work regardless whether that one image was cooperating or not. But let's go ahead and try it. Photo merge HDR. Here we go. Yeah, okay, that time it didn't complain. So moving the image resolved whatever issue it was having. Reading it from the volume that it was on. And I thought it was going a little fast also for this preview. So that's what made me think it wasn't using all 3. All right, this is the slower building of that process that I expect. All right, let's see here. When am I coming out with a new episode for Muse? This question's coming from YouTube. There is a major update for Muse that's coming. We announced, or not announced it, but we showed it at Max in October. I felt that it really wasn't viable to start recording a bunch of content until that new version comes out, because that new version is going to change all the content I would record. So that's why you haven't seen me do any new videos on Muse lately, because I'm waiting for everyone to have, at least close to the point where everyone will have that update in their hands. So stay tuned. As soon as that update comes out, I'll be able to walk you through it. Now this is taking longer than it should. I may have to choose 3 more images. Something's going on with these. Shouldn't take that long, especially not to even have a progress bar at this point. All right, we'll give it a few more seconds, see what goes on. I'll look at more questions here. More software for HDR. Well, of course, you can do HDR right in Photoshop. You can do it in Camera Raw. And there are lots of third-party applications that do it as well. And do one preview, and if you cancel, the next preview doesn't work. Huh, okay, that's a new one for me. I've done this before. I thought I canceled before, but maybe. All right, let's do it a different way. Let's try this. Control-Shift-H. Now, that one's working because I bypassed the preview. What the preview does is it lets you turn on and off options. But once you have the preview set the way you want, let's say you're building 4 HDRs in a row, and you do preview the first one, and you make all your settings, but the other 3 you're going to do are exactly the same, then when you select the next 3 images, or 4 or 5, whatever you have, you can do, instead of Control-H from the keyboard to bring up the preview, you can do Control-Shift-H to bypass the preview and just go ahead and make the HDR, which is what I did. So here's the HDR image that it just built from those 3, which I just want to see if the preview works, because if you're right, meaning that if you cancel and you have to reset Lightroom in order for the preview to work, then I want to report that as a bug to the Lightroom team in case it hasn't already been done. So I'm going to do Control-H this time, one more time. And see, now it's working. I didn't have to reset Lightroom to do it. Okay, but I will nonetheless run that by the Lightroom team and see if they know about that as an issue and see if that's something that they're working on resolving, or if they didn't know about it, what to do about it. Okay, so, but you're right. It did seem stuck until I built an HDR. And now when I do it, it's fine again, but I didn't have to reset Lightroom to do it. Okay, but here we are. This is what I would have shown you, which is basically, there's not a lot to do with this particular image. There's auto align and auto tone, which are on by default. Now, deghost is an option that I use, and I'll show it to you on another image where it makes sense. Auto align is taking care of um, your movement. Or what I mean by that is, I literally shot these just pointing my camera up and going click, click, click. But I don't think I had a tripod for this. So when I go click, 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 my hand could ever so slightly move. As a matter of fact, I'm sure it did move each time I pressed the button, because you cannot hand hold 3 clicks in a row perfectly still. It's impossible for a human being to do that. So I know there was at least a slight amount of movement, and what auto align does is it says, oh, that image moved from the second one, from the third one, I'll auto align them together so that they are together. Deghost, on the other hand, is, let's say you are in a tripod and you use a wireless shutter release and there's no movement on the ground whatsoever and no wind and it's not moving at all. But the subject is moving. A waving flag is going to move no matter how still the camera is. What deghost does is it samples from the 3 images. It looks at the movement and decides a frame to use to freeze the movement. So auto align is for you, deghost is for your subject. If your subject's moving, that's what deghost is for. If you're moving, that's what auto align's for. So by default, deghost is off because this church is not moving. I don't have to worry about that. There's nothing in this shot that's moving. So I don't need any deghosting at all. But if I did, I could turn that on. Now, I've already done the merge, so there's no need to do it again. And that will result in this particular image here. Now, let's see here. I just want to make sure that I got it both places. Okay, good. No questions. So now, why the HDR to begin with? Because, and for those of you who are new to what's HDR for, why would you even do this? And a second thing is, do you always need 3 images, or could you use more or less? And the answer to the second one is, no, you don't always need 3 images. You can absolutely do it with less. You can do it with 2 images. You need at least 2. You can do it with more than 3. You can do it with 5. You can do it with 7. I think I've done it as many as 7 or 9 images, 9 different exposures. Why you do HDR in the first place, and everyone can probably relate to this if you've ever taken a photograph. If you've ever taken a photograph of something very dark against something very light, or something very light against something very dark, you know that your eye can see the difference. So for example, if I see someone sitting in a window, bright sun in the window, I can still see the person. I can make them out, no problem. And I can even make out what's outside the window if it's not too bright. Your camera is not as good as your eye. And it's actually kind of interesting that we're in 2016 and still cameras can't easily discern drastic differences in light like that. Now, they're getting better. Some cameras have HDR built in. Some cameras are trying to do all that built in. But most cameras today can't discern between those 2 types of images. So what you end up with is either an image that's very dark with a bright sun, or you end up with an image that is properly exposed, but the window's completely blown out. You don't see anything but just a bright white box or rectangle. What HDR is doing is it's saying, okay, I'm going to turn my camera to a setting called bracket. And most mid to high-end cameras have this. Even point and shoots can do this. Where it's capturing, like I said, at a minimum, usually 3 exposures. So it's capturing one that's like kind of in the middle, kind of like what we would call a normal exposure. And then it's usually, by default, doing 2 stops darker and 2 stops lighter. So it's capturing that dynamic range of light between the 3 images, and to hopefully get the subject completely exposed properly, and the background completely exposed properly, and then the software puts them together. Like I said, I've seen cameras that actually have a setting called HDR, and when you take the shot, it does it all in the camera, or it will turn it on bracketing so it does it all in the camera properly and then gives you the 3 images. So I've seen it's coming. But most cameras out there in people's hands today just don't do it properly. All right, so what Lightroom is doing is it's taking those three exposures to create this new exposure that gives me more detail in the light areas, like the windows here, where I can now, and I detail in the shadows and the other parts of this image. So that was the idea. Had I just pointed my camera up and clicked, then either the church would be exposed properly or the windows would be exposed properly, but not both. And that's what we got with the HDR. Now, the HDR that Lightroom creates, or Camera Raw creates, is what I like to call a standard HDR. It's basically everything I just explained. Taking those three images, putting them together to get a good exposure. It's not the over-the-top, highly processed HDR image that we nicknamed the Harry Potter effect that a lot of photographers were doing when HDR first became the thing. And like most things in photography, or a lot of things in photography, it's a fad. It's one of those things that everyone does it, and then everyone stops doing it. And then everyone's doing it, and then everyone stops doing it. So for a while there, everyone was posting HDR images that were over the top. And now it's kind of died down a little bit. You don't see as much over the top HDR. What you see is just people using the tool the way it was intended to be used. Getting a good exposure from challenging light situations. All right. Next, now that I've got this, sorry, something on my nose. I keep scratching my nose. Sorry. Now that I've got the HDR that it created, what I can do is I can continue to refine it to make it look better. So I'm going to head over to the Develop module. And in my Develop module, like for example, there's still some things I want to adjust, even though it did a good job putting the three exposures together. That doesn't mean I'm finished. What I would do in this case is I would first look at the shadow clipping, which in this case, every time I hover over that triangle, I can see that this area right here illuminates in blue. And that means that that area, that the blue spot in that spot right now, is completely filled in. There, where I see that little bit of blue, there's no detail whatsoever in the shadows. It's completely black. Now, is that an important part of the photo? I'm going to argue no. If it were an important part of the photo, then I would want to concentrate on fixing it. So for example, if it were maybe down here, where there's some detail in a design here on the church, or right here, yeah, I want that design to show. I don't want that to be completely filled in. But whatever that is, it's so dark anyway that, you know, even if it had detail, you wouldn't really be able to see what it was. But let's say, for the sake of example, that it was in an area that mattered. Then what I could do is underneath that triangle, and by the way, this histogram is divided into sections. So there's blacks, shadows, exposure, highlights, whites. So under the blacks in the histogram, under each section, I get a little double arrow pointing that lets me go left and right. So that adjusts whatever slider needs to be adjusted to expose that area better. And so if I drag that to the right just a little bit, okay, that was before when it was, where it was completely white, meaning that that indicator's on. If I drag it over a little bit, I'm going to try and catch it in the middle here. Okay, now it's turning yellow, green. That means it's not as bad. It's getting there. And if I keep dragging it, it will go completely off. Now again, that's also changing the blacks for the entire photo. So yes, it's lightening up the blacks in the entire photo. And if that's what you want, then you're okay. But was it worth lightening up everything just for that one spot? Maybe, because now you got more detail in all the other areas that you could see before, but they weren't as visible. So that could be something you might want. Same thing over here in the highlight warning. If I hover over that, see that it's turning red in some of the windows. So for example, when I hover over it, look right here in this window, hover over it, I can see it. Let go, I can't see it. Hover over, and you can click to turn it on so it stays on, by the way. So right now it's on here, it's on here, it's on there. So that means wherever I see that little line of red, and this is just a little bit here, that it's completely blown out. It's all white, 100%, no detail whatsoever. In the sun, the windows, a bumper on a car that's reflecting the sun, there's not going to be any, a light bulb, there's not going to be any detail. So you can try and rescue that all day long, and you're not going to ever pull it all back in. Now, in this case, it's only a little bit because that indicator is not even completely white. It's just a little blue. So I can go ahead and just drag it over to the left a little bit and recover the highlights in that area. Now, everything I just showed you with working with the histogram is correct, but not necessarily the right order to do it in. Because if this were my finished photo, then yes, I've now corrected the histogram and I'm ready to go. But I may go do things now under the basic area of the develop module that will throw it back off again because I may darken it a little bit more. I may do something else. So you might want to save everything I just did till last instead of doing it first. But that indicator was on and my eye was drawn to it, so I started working with it without thinking, wait, you're going to mess with other things that may counteract what you just did. All right. Hello there. X Moon Blind X. How's it going? Okay, so someone is asking on YouTube, and I forgot to mention this too. There is an update. Here, let me see if I see it here. Go to my apps. Yep, there's an update. There's an update to Photoshop that just came out last night or today. And someone's asking on YouTube, Euro Rocking, is asking on YouTube, hey, is that just a bug fix or is that new features? In this case, it's just a bug fix because the new features came out 2 weeks ago. So there's no new features in this update. What this update fixes is the problem someone asked me about on my last live stream. I think it was Finishing Touch or Renee asked me about the bug in Liquify with 16-bit images. That's what this update fixes. If you try to do Liquify on a 16-bit image without this update, you would get a white box wherever you brushed or wherever you liquefied. This update solves that. So thanks Photoshop team for fixing that quickly without having to make us wait for another feature update. And that's the beauty of Creative Cloud is that these updates appear, you can run them, and away you go. All right, so that's what the update resolves, and thanks for asking about that because I would have forgotten to mention that. Next. Okay, so back to our story. So now I want to do some things in here. First of all, because it's a landscape, building, architecture, I usually add more clarity. If it's a person, especially a female subject, I usually stay away from clarity because it makes the skin look too rough. But since there's no skin here to worry about, I can really make this way more detailed. Now, again, look at what it's doing to the histogram. So in this case, that's why I said you might want to save that till last. All right, so I'm bringing over my clarity and making that a little bit more defined. All right. Well, thanks, Paul. No problem. And you're rocking. Glad I could help. So that's what the update's all about. All right, next. Okay, so I add some clarity. And again, it's got some nice colors in here, so we can add a little bit more vibrance. Vibrance will make those colors pop without going too far. Saturation is good too, but saturation's easy to overdo, so use saturation sparingly. For example, that's overdoing it. That's taking the saturation a little over the top, but maybe that's what you want, and that will make your photo look the way you want it to look. But to me, that's way too much saturation, so I'm going to back off the saturation quite a bit to maybe something right about there. Okay? And now, the other thing I usually take a look at is the either the tone curve or the point curve. In this case, I like the point curve because it's just an easy preset. So that's medium contrast. That's strong contrast. And again, look at what it's doing here. Now I've lost all the detail in those shadow areas that we talked about. And this is going crazy. So that's too much contrast. That's much better where some of that detail is coming back. So that's why I said save the histogram till last. After you finish getting everything else done the way you want it to look, then go back and re-examine the histogram and see if there's anything else you need to do there. All right, so now, for example, I can say, okay, all that did everything I wanted to do except I don't want to lose that detail and no shadow. So I'm going to pull that back over just a little bit. Whether the indicator goes off or not, I'm just looking at the actual image. Because it's a trade-off with the shadow areas being darker. All right, I would say right about there is good. I can still see the detail in those areas. Okay, and again, I'm not so much worried about that little bit of clipping in the highlights here because it's just not a detailed area enough to worry about. Okay, so it's okay if the histogram has those errors. It's okay. It's up to you. Okay, so with that said, I can go back to the grid now. And just to show you where we came from, if you're just getting here, we started with these three images. So for example, if I go to this one, this was our over blown out HDR or bracket image so we can get all the detail in those shadows. Now this probably makes more sense to you because you see those areas. That's why it overexposed it. Then we go to the darker image, which is trying to bring in the windows. So you see the detail in the windows. And then we go to the regular exposure, which is kind of like one in between. And it put together this one for our HDR. So that's the one I ended up going with. Now again, if I want to continue working on that, because I just noticed something else I might want to check, I can bring down the whites in that image just a little bit more. And I can even bring down the exposure a little bit. I'm okay with that. Actually, let's put the exposure back to 0. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't need it to be that bright. Maybe a point 10. Yeah, okay. I'm good with that. All right. What type of photography is HDR best for? Lillian's asking. HDR is best for subjects that aren't moving. That's the best way to explain it. If it's a portrait and the person is likely to move in between those three shots, then it's going to be less effective. Unless you need to take a shot of that person against that window, and that's the easiest, best way to do. Just make sure your subject can remain as perfectly still as possible. Not good for babies, not good for pets, not good for anything that is likely to move and can't remain perfectly still. Definitely best, probably most used in landscape photography because that's where you have the challenging lighting situations. If Rufus is on here, I know he was here earlier. He had probably one of the best examples of explaining, or best shots for explaining HDR that I've ever seen. Imagine you're in a cave, a tourist spot. Like you're inside of a cave and you're looking at the outside. You're looking at the opening. Well, inside the cave, you got the dark walls. Outside the cave, you got the bright light. So in that example, which I've got to get those files from him because that was, again, that was the best example I ever saw. Putting that together as an HDR meant that you could still see inside the cave and you could see what was outside the cave. So landscapes is probably the best use case for that. Hi, am I using a MacBook or iMac? I'm using a MacBook Pro 15-inch Retina. Mid-2014, to be exact. All right, hang on one second here. Okay, good. Alrighty. Okay, back to our story. All right, so now that we've got this this HDR finished, what do I want to do with it? Oh, and before I go move this somewhere, let me talk about I was going to show you an example of when to use the deghosting. So for example, we've got these three images that hang on, wrong key. There we go. We got these three images that I took in Egypt, and this was a challenging lighting situation too. This was actually just bad all the way around. Middle of the day, desert sun, worst possible time to go out and take a photograph. And it was the only time that I could go shoot this, unfortunately. Um, and it's just completely blown out. If I want the detail of the Sphinx, and that's what I would get. I would get the detail of the Sphinx, but the sky completely gone, the pyramid completely gone. So that was one of those situations where I definitely wanted to capture HDR. And as you can see by the Sphinx moving up and down between these frames, left and right, didn't have a tripod either. So this was the most horrific situation to be in. I'm in this beautiful, historic place on the planet, one of the most historic places on the planet. No tripod, middle of the day, trying to capture this scene. So here we go. At least I was smart enough to do it as a bracket exposure. So let's go in and grab the three images. We'll do Control H to do, oh God, now we got the same problem with these. Hang on. Hold on. We'll let it build the preview. And I want to go move these images. For some reason, they're in a locked volume. I don't know why, but let's move them. Move them over there. Okay, they've been moved. Let's try that again. Control H. And you're right. So I'm going to report that as a bug. My progress bar is not moving after I did the first preview but canceled the merge. So I'm going to report that as a potential bug. So let's do it the other way first, where we'll build the HDR. We're not going to use that HDR because I want to show you the example. All right. And thanks, I would have been pulling my hair out otherwise, trying to figure out why the preview wasn't working. So I'm just going to delete that one. And let's try it again. Okay. So now that I've got the preview here, the auto align took care of this. Me moving the camera after I go click, click, click. So that took care of that. What I didn't realize at the time, I didn't realize this actually until I was showing this as an example inside Lightroom. You see off to the right-hand side down there, you see those horses / camels, whatever. You see animals down there, right? Well, I'm not worried about the pyramid moving. Not worried about the Sphinx moving. They are definitely not moving. But those animals didn't heed my command of, everyone stand still, I'm taking a picture. It just didn't happen. So if we were to zoom in on that area, I now see, hang on, let's see if I can make this bigger. I can't. I now see, here I can make it bigger this way. I now see 1.5 horses. I now see, I don't know, 1 2/2 of horses. I see a very long camel because they kept moving between my thoughts. And I'm sure there's some stuff up there moving too. I just can't see it. So this should be 1 horse. This should be 1 or 2 horses at the most. I think it's 1. But again, it looks weird because they were moving between the 3 frames. So that's what deghost is for. Now the amount from low, medium to high will depend on how much movement there was. If there was a little bit of movement, low, movement, medium, high amount of movement, high. So you're just turning on how much deghosting you want to happen. So just checking, making sure I don't have any missing comments here. Hey Elsie Finch, how's it going? And okay, let's see. Does auto align work around parallax? Then you'd have to try it. It just really depends on the 3 images or the multiple images and how much parallax there is. I'm gonna say medium because those horses are fairly far apart. Meaning there's enough movement to stretch the horse out or the camels out that far. Now, it has to build a new preview to do that, but look what happened once it built that new preview. I have the correct number of camels and horses. without it being 1.5, 2.5, so forth and so on. Now, by the way, if you're curious to see where it made changes other than the ones that were obvious, you can turn on the show deghost overlay. So there was things moving in other places that I just didn't notice, and that's okay. And it could be something like a bird flying by. It could be wind. It could be anything moving in the photo. And the higher amount of deghosting you'll see, the more red you'll see because it's trying to pick up any little movement whatsoever. So that's what the difference is between auto align and deghost. And now, of course, I can go ahead and merge this. Merging. Well, by the way, that's a background process anytime you're doing an HDR or panel. So you don't have to wait. If you can go on and work on your next one, you can go on and work on anything else in Lightroom, and it will just continue working in the background. But by the time I finish saying that, it's done. All right, so here's the HDR. And again, far from being done, but at least it's better. At least I can see a little bit of sky now compared to that. That's what I would have gotten. Or I would have gotten something like that to see the sky. So that's the point of HDR, is to be able to at least see the Sphinx and the sky at the same time. Now I've got a lot more tools to play with than I did even when I first started showing this image in Lightroom because of this wonderful thing called dehaze. So it's still a very hazy image. I'm going to go in, scroll all the way down to my effects panel and go to the dehaze slider where I can just bring it over a little bit more and take out some of that haze in the image, making it that much better. Now I don't want to go too far, even though that's a beautiful sky. And that brings up another point. Look at that beautiful sky now that is there because of dehaze. But look at what happened to the rest. Now everything else is too dark. And that's been the problem with dehaze. Ooh, if I drag it over even further, the sky gets better. That's been the problem with dehaze from day one, is that like any other global adjustment, if you take it too far, you might get the ideal result in one area of the photo, but it adversely affects the other areas of the photo. So then what you would do before is you would just, oh, well, I can't go that far. I'll back off to the point to where this stuff down here looks good and the sky will just have to look okay. Not anymore. I take the dehaze slider over, and again, this is where we started. It looks unbelievable now compared to 0. That's 0. We took it over that much. Let's say about that much. And I'm not looking at the sky. I don't care about the sky right now. I'm just looking at the bottom to where I want it to be on the bottom. Maybe right about there. Okay, now the reason I wasn't looking at the sky, because I'm going to take care of the sky separately, because now I can. Now I'm going to go in and use an adjustment brush, because now the adjustment brush in the latest updates to Lightroom and Camera Raw can also do dehaze via a local adjustment. So I can say dehaze from the presets, and all it does by choosing the preset is turn off everything else. So it's now just doing dehaze. Everything else has been set back to 0. And now I can go in. I'll grab my, oh, what did I just do? Did I just hit something by accident? Oh, sorry, I just hit something by accident. Okay, so now I'll take my stylus here and make my brush a lot bigger. And you probably want to see this, so let's show it to you. All right. And here, so now I'm just going to go ahead and just brush this on the sky, dehazing the sky without affecting the pyramid anymore. Now I'm purposely not going too close to the pyramid because I can zoom in and work with a smaller brush, but just wanted to get the big areas out of the way first. And then dial the brush down a little bit and zoom in. Okay, I want a bigger brush. zoom in, and then I can get real close, up close and personal to the edges. There we go. All right. And again, I have the ability to now adjust that as much, adding more haze, or as little, taking the haze away, or really going drastic, that's a little too drastic because we already added some. All right. Glad you like it, hopefully. All right, so now, got the sky where I want it. What? Oh, I'm not moving anymore? Yeah, I'm not moving anymore. Hang on, guys. Someone just told me, hey, you're not moving anymore. That camera's frozen. See if that fixes me. All right, moving again. Hold on. Okay, back to me. There we go. Okay, I'm moving again. All right, so that took care of the Sphinx. I'm sorry, that took care of the sky, but the Sphinx is now a little dark because of all the adjustments we just made. So what I want to do instead is, or not instead, but in addition to, is I want to use one more local adjustment just to kind of throw a little bit of light, as if I'd thrown a giant flash or giant strobe right in front of it, just to lighten up that face just a little bit more. And again, we're doing this all non-destructively here in Lightroom. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the radial filter, and that was one of my favorite features in Lightroom 5, and just drag out the radial filter, and you're saying, hey, you're making it darker. It's okay. Because now I can go and choose exposure, and I can say invert. Nope, I don't want to invert. Actually, I just want to bring up the exposure. Although invert was a cool effect. So now I can brighten that up as much as I want. But this was always the problem with the radial filter before this update. The radial filter is elliptical. It's round, oval, whatever. I cannot mark it perfectly around the face. Now, I could just use an exposure adjustment and go in and brush the face. But this is much faster. Instead, I can use this adjustment, move it around. I get like a little spotlight I'm walking around with. And from there, I can say, okay, I got it the way I want, but I don't want it around the edges. So now in this current version of Lightroom, I can go ahead and grab brush, I can click erase, and I can go around the edge and take off the brightness around the outer edge of where that radial filter was placed. So that way I'm not overexposing the edges. And again, I still have the ability to go in and brighten it up as much as I want or as little as I want, as if I had done my own little light job on this. And if I want to add a little more haze to it, I can. If I want to brighten the shadows, I can. If I want to increase the clarity of that one spot, I can. So you can do whatever you want in that one spot. All right, so the radial filter saves the day. And of course, I could go in and brush the edges where they might be a little dark, but you get the idea. Or take off some more down there on the neck, but we could spend all day on that. That wasn't the purpose of today, but you get the idea. Thank you. Glad you like it. Siraj, is it Siraj on YouTube? Thanks a lot. Okay, so and that now I'm looking at it, might be a little over the top, but we came from that to this, and yeah, that's see now I'm looking at it and I'm saying, that's a little bit much on the lighting there. So let me select that point, bring the lighting down just a little bit. It's a little too much light. There we go. Maybe something like that. But that's the point. Non-destructive adjustments. I can come back tomorrow and look at it again and say, ooh, what was I thinking yesterday? And continue to make adjustments. I've not harmed a single pixel in this example. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so we've got our two HDR images that we just finished. I'll put them at the bottom here. And now what do I want to do? This whole point of this was to get this online. So we should have a quorum of people now here that, here, let me check something. Quorum of people here that were now, maybe you missed the beginning, and that's why I kind of did some of the preparation first to get images ready, teaching things, but at the same time, now we can jump into the whole web thing up front. All right, so I have a collection called Portfolio Travel. And right now that Portfolio Travel has 31 images in it. I think it already has a version of this, maybe, maybe not, but it definitely does not have the church. So I'm going to drag that into the Portfolio Travel collection. So now when I go to the Portfolio Travel collection, I've got my favorite travel images. And I can move this around, put it where I think it fits best, maybe something like there, because we're showing round objects, 3 in a row there. And this is my travel portfolio. Now, if I want to put this portfolio online, this is the point that we're getting to. I have several ways to do it. I have ways to do it inside of Lightroom. I have ways to do it inside of Lightroom with third-party plugins. I have ways to do it outside of Lightroom, whether I'm just telling a story about my travels. I have ways to do it whether I want to put these images on my website or make a website based on these images. I have lots of ways to do it. So let's talk about as many as we can in the next hour or so, because we got about an hour and 7 minutes left. Quick question check before we move on. Yes, no pixels were harmed in the making of that image. Hey Renee, how are you? And sorry you couldn't see because of the buffering, but that is a live streaming issue or a potential issue. All right. Okay. Here, let me switch views back. There we go. All right. So let's talk about preparing these images each way. I'll just do them in a random order. It really doesn't matter which way you do it. Okay. First of all, they're in a collection. That's the main thing you want to just get in your head, that if you want to share something, you want to share 2 or more images as a group, the best thing to do is to put them in a collection first. So I put these in a collection. I have all my portfolio images in a collection from day one. This portfolio travel, what can you do with Lightroom? Well, that's about a 2-day topic. So we're going to see some things we can do with Lightroom right now. And the answer that I love there that Victoria said, a lot. As a matter of fact, I was going to show this anyway, but now's a perfect chance to show it. If you head to my YouTube channel, I just posted a new video called How to Get Started with Lightroom, 10 Things a Beginner Wants to Know How to Do. And that's just for beginners, and it's an hour and 12 minutes. So Lightroom can do a lot. My YouTube channel, easiest way to remember it is, here, I'll type it in the chat on both, is terrywhite.tv. And the live streamers are probably already there, but on YouTube, but let's see. Oops, not terrywhite.com. Sorry about that, YouTube. Terrywhite.tv. But terrywhite.com is a cool place to go as well. All right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Paul. The better answer would be, what can't you do with Lightroom? All right, so let's answer one of those questions about what can I do with Lightroom. Okay, so now that these images are in a collection, I've also gone ahead and synced that collection with Lightroom Mobile. So that's just basically turning on Lightroom Mobile, which you do from your identity plate in Lightroom CC. So I said sync with Lightroom Mobile. If you have Lightroom CC, that's an option. If you're on Lightroom 6, you don't have that option, unfortunately. But with my travel portfolio now synced to Lightroom Mobile, that image that I just added got synced in the background. If I go back up here, there's no status update because it's already done. So one of the reasons I love doing this, here we'll show it to you live. I'm connecting a live demo. Bear with me for a second. All right, let's go here. Let's check this. All right. One of the reasons I love doing that is because, for example, I travel obviously with my phone. I travel. I don't want me. I want that. I travel with my iPad, in this case, my iPad Pro. And on my iPad Pro, I've got an app called Lightroom, Lightroom Mobile. Free app to download on iOS and Android, phone and tablet. So I've got it on my phone, I've got it on my tablet. There's my iPad right there. So I'm going to launch Lightroom on my iPad. And whenever I want to show someone my portfolios, there's my portfolio travel, I can show it. And there's the church image. It's already there. Because that's the point of Lightroom Mobile, is that once it syncs, it's everywhere. It's on all your devices. So I can tap on the first image. If I want the person to be able to experience this without making adjustments or seeing the Lightroom interface, because that's all for me. Let's see if I can do it from here. You'll notice that when I tap the share button, there's a present option at the bottom. So I'm just going to say present. Now that turns off all the Lightroom stuff to where now you're just showing your images in a portfolio. So for example, I can tap, and everyone knows how to swipe left or right. They can swipe left or right on my images and see my portfolio, and that's just me being local and handing it to them, saying, hey, go look at my portfolio. Here it is. Or here's my iPad. Check it out. So if we keep swiping, we'll ultimately get to New York, San Francisco, Australia, South Africa, Denmark. There we are. So all that work I just did exactly synced everywhere that my images are. All right, so now that's great from a, yes, I want to exit that. I want to go back out. That's great from a, I'm with you, standing there. I can hand you my phone, hand you my iPad. But the point of this was being online. So let me check questions real quick. Okay. Yeah, opinions are best kept to yourself. Okay, anyway. Next, what I'm going to do is, unrequested opinions are best kept to yourself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the web version of this now. So Lightroom is already on the web. The minute you synced with Lightroom Mobile, you have access to your images on the web. And here, let me show it to you real quick. Let's go to, just want to make sure I'm signed in. Yes, I'm signed in. Okay. I'll do it in front of you now that I know I'm signed in. Let's go back to the browser window here. Let's ask for a new tab. Let's go to lightroom.adobe.com. And when I go to lightroom.adobe.com and I sign in, which if I hadn't signed in, there'd be a sign in button at the upper right. I'm signing in with the same Adobe ID and I see the same images, including my portfolio travel. So the images are here on the web already as well. And there's the church image we just worked on. So it's all there. But that's, again, for me to look at. If I want someone else to be able to look at this, I don't want them seeing my dozens of collections. Some are personal, some are family, some are whatever. I don't want everyone seeing everything. So what I would do instead, head back to Lightroom, go to the one collection I want to share, or multiple collections I want to share, and say make public. When I say make public, that generates a URL for for that one collection that I can share with everyone. And if I click on it, I can copy it, of course. If I right click, I can copy it to the clipboard, put it in an email, text message, Facebook, whatever, however you share things. And when I click on that link, instead, what they're seeing, they don't see all the collection choices on the side. They only see this one collection. So I can make that public. It's hosted by Adobe. It's part of my Creative Cloud account. There's no limit to the number of photos I can do, number of collections I can do, number of links I can do. I can have as many portfolios, as many collections or galleries of images sharing with different people just with a single URL as I want. And what can they do if they're looking at it? They can click on the image. They can see any description that I put in the image. If they're signed in with an Adobe ID, which is free to make, they can like the image or add a comment to the image. That's it. If I share the metadata, they can see, or actually they can see the metadata that I've shared, that Lightroom shares. I can't remember what it shares, but it shares. All right, so that's what I do. Now, the question is, that I normally get about anything online. How do I protect my images from being downloaded? You don't. I'll let that sit with you for a second while I look at questions. All right, I'll answer Eric's question while I'll let you think about you don't protect your images. 3 pictures is a standard number of pics used to create an HDR. I usually use 9. Is that overkill to get as much data or much detail as I want? It's not overkill. It's, if you want more detail, use more shots. 2 is the bare minimum. So anything from 2 on up, use as many as you like to use. Now, to answer the is it overkill question, next time you go shoot for HDR, try both. Try the exact same scene with 3 exposures and 9, or 5, 3, 5, 9. In other words, just keep doing that same scene with a different number of brackets, and come back, process them, and you decide. Can I get by with 3? Can I get by with 5? Can I get by with 7? Can I get by with 9? Or no, you can get by with 9. Is 9 the best possible image to my eye? And if 9 is for you, 9 is for you. Hey Wes, how's it going? Okay, so yeah, scripting is worthless. I agree. No, not worthless, but it just doesn't protect. Okay, so here's the thing. While there may be some things in place that make simple copying of the image not easy, and I don't know if Lightroom does it or not. Here, let's see. It doesn't let me save the image. It lets me save the page, but it doesn't let me download the image. So that's a simple protection that will satisfy or stop the amateur from just grabbing your image and downloading it. But if someone wants your image, and your image is online, visible, they can get your image. For example, they may not get the resolution best possible resolution, because this isn't putting up the best possible resolution anyway. But if it's big enough to be seen like this, then it's big enough to steal and use. So for example, oh, can't download it? Command Shift 4. And let's draw a nice little marquee around that and screen capture, and I've got it. I've screen captured that image. It's now on my hard drive. Oh, he had a watermark down there, even though I don't. He had a watermark down there. I'll content aware fill that out in Photoshop, or I'll just crop it to where I don't have the watermark showing. If people want to steal, they will steal. You can't spend your life saying, oh, well, I'll just do a million different things to make my images no longer enjoyable on the web so that no one steals them. If you have an image or you have a thing that you absolutely don't want people to steal, don't put it online. Just don't put it online. Don't ever share it. Don't ever post it anywhere, and no one can steal it because you've not put it up. But if you put it up, if someone really wants it, it's just like adding layers of security to your home. If someone wants to break in, they'll break in. You can add burglar alarms, bars, a dog, everything else. If someone wants in, they'll break in. All you're doing is adding layers. So this was one simple layer. I can't right click. But if someone really wants this image, that's determined to have this image, they'll take it. So that's the whole security speech. Yes, you could put a big fat watermark right in the middle of it, and down the middle and down the side and diagonally, and 5 different watermarks. But then at that point, no one can really see your image anymore. So was it worth it? So that's totally up to you. All right. Just checking the images here. How effective is suing those who steal your photos? It depends. I'm not, going after individual people that are posting your image on social media. You're probably not going to get much. You're going to pay a lawyer to write a cease and desist letter. They're going to write it, send it, and that person might be scared and take the image down. Okay, but now since that image has been up and the process that you took to do it cost you money, and 100 other people have now reposted that image, you're going to go after them too? So I'm not so much worried. I don't like it when people do it. I've had my images posted online. I don't really like it, especially when they do weird things to the image. It'd be different if they just posted it, but no, they add text to it. They use it as a meme. That I don't like so much, but what you want to do is copyright your images. There's a process to do that. We're not going to get into that today, where you legally submit copyrights for your images. Once you do that, what you're really looking for, not so much the little mom and pop social media people, what you really, the big payoff would be is if a big corporation somehow used your image without your permission. Those are the ones you go after because they've got the money to actually pay for it. Suing John on Instagram, what's that really going to get you? And at best, they're just you report it, they take it down, but you're not going to really get a lot of money from that. All right. Okay, moving along, because we can go down that rat hole all day long, but we're not going to. Next. So, now that this has been shared as a collection, I can share it or I can give that link out to anyone. They can look through the images. If they have an Adobe ID, they can even provide feedback. Next. So that was one way that's built right into Lightroom CC. Next way would be, what if you just want to take, a couple of the images or the one we just processed, and you just want to post it online. You want to post it to all those sites we just talked about. You want to post it to SmugMug. You want to post it to Facebook. You want to post it to Flickr, 500px, Instagram, so forth and so on. We have a couple of ways of doing that from Lightroom. Number one, and this is often overlooked in Lightroom, is that you have this section below your collections called Published Services. Published services I could not imagine life without. I use them all the time. You can download the one for 500px. It doesn't come with Lightroom, but Lightroom comes with Facebook, Flickr, and the rest I've downloaded as third party. SmugMug, and we'll talk about the Turning Gate in a minute. but these are all social media sites that can publish right from Lightroom to that site. So someone mentioned SmugMug earlier. If I wanted to post this image in my recent work on SmugMug, oh, sorry, I have to put it in my recent work first. Even though it's not recent, I'll put it there for now. I'll take it out later. I'll put it in my recent work. That should update the SmugMug Smart Collection. It did. And so now, if I were to hit publish, yes, there's a new version. I'm going to skip the version for now. That will publish this right to SmugMug from Lightroom. I don't have to make an image, export the image, log into SmugMug, upload the image. I don't have to do any of that. I just put it in a collection and publish. So I have all of these set up to where once I update my recent work collection, I just go publish, 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 all the way down the list. And it gets uploaded to Facebook, my Facebook fan page, my Facebook personal page, my Facebook photography page, my Flickr page, my 500px page, my Picasa web, which is Google+, and my SmugMug, all from Lightroom. So that's the easiest way to keep publishing images, new images to all of those social media services. Now, the one you don't see there is Instagram, because Instagram has been very, very, very strict on what can publish to Instagram. I think there's only, besides the Instagram app itself, I think there's only maybe one other site or two other sites that they allow to publish directly to Instagram. So that's why there's no Instagram plugin for Lightroom, because they just don't allow it. Okay, so this is kind of off topic, but I'll address it as best I can. Hey, Wes. Wes is asking, what's the perfect way to shoot a panoramic shot, and what's the camera I use in my studio photo shoots? The camera I use in my studio photo shoots is a Nikon D810. The best way to shoot panoramic, really, Lightroom and Photoshop will take care of it for the most part, so you don't have to be perfect with your panorama, but you want to have at least 20% overlap between the shots. And what we all often do is we stand there and we turn our bodies. We go click, 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 click. And actually that works, but you better off actually turning your feet, moving your feet as you do it. I know it sounds weird, but one of the Photoshop engineers brought that up years ago, and I've tried it both ways, and it does work a little bit better. The other way, of course, is to use a tripod, and you don't have to worry about your feet. So tripod, best option. If you're doing it handheld, use your feet to move instead of just your body, and shoot it vertically. So turn your camera sideways, because then you get more this way, and you can always go this way as much as you want. Those are the best ways. Or just use a camera that has a built-in panoramic feature, like my iPhone. Hey, Koo, thanks for dropping by and saying hi. All right, so moving along. So those are the ways to publish directly. Now let's say that I do want to put that image on Instagram, which can't publish from Lightroom. I can't do it automatically. I have to make an image, load it on my phone, and put it on Instagram. Well, wait a minute. We just said something here. Hang on, let's go back to this. Let me go back to this for a second. Let me move this out of the way for a second. And let me unplug the iPad. My phone is here's my phone. Plug my phone in. Go to my phone. There we go. Here we go. Here's my phone. And on my phone, I've also got Lightroom Mobile. And when I go to Lightroom Mobile on my phone, get out of that collection. And we'll give it a second because I hadn't been in Lightroom, but let's go down to my travel, portfolio travel here. There it is. There's the church. It's already there. If I want to post that on Instagram right from here. I can tap and I can use the share button in the upper right hand corner. And here's a mistake that I made even when this first came out. Oh, share. And then I see Facebook, Twitter, and all the other things, but no Instagram. And I thought, oh, we can't do Instagram. You can. It's just not share. Open in for Instagram. So if I want to open in, there's the Instagram icon right there. So I can open it and copy it right to Instagram. It will ask me if I want to open the Instagram app, which I think it will do that right now, or it'll just do it. There it is. It opens the Instagram app, and now I'm in Instagram. I'm sharing the picture. Here's the one downside with doing it that way until this is updated. This feature came out, and then Instagram decided that square is no longer a requirement. So right now, this image is going to be posted as a square shot. I have no way to readjust it doing it that way. It's square. Matter of fact, it's already cropped. I can't even move it around. So if I'm okay with that view, great, done, instant. From Lightroom mobile to Instagram, share it, go next, put in my description, and share. Let's get out of Lightroom for a minute. Let's get out of Instagram for a minute. The other way to do it, now see that's a nice wide shot. The other way to do it, of course, is to simply share, but save the image right there at the bottom. If I save the image to the camera roll, now it's not just square, and then I can post it into Instagram. While we're at it, let's take that up a notch. Let me show you what I do when I'm doing, since this is real world, let me show you how I'm sharing these images from Lightroom Mobile to Instagram, not square, but also with a watermark. Unfortunately, although I can do watermarks inside of Lightroom, I can't do watermarks in Lightroom Mobile. So I have no way to put my logo on this image from Lightroom Mobile. But that doesn't mean I can't put the logo on my image from another app. So if I say save to camera roll, it's already on the camera roll. I don't do anything else. Now I get out of Lightroom Mobile, and I have an app called iWatermark. Not uWatermark, iWatermark. There we go. If I type correctly, it will actually come up. There we go, iWatermark Plus. iWatermark Plus is a third-party app. It's a paid app. It costs, I don't know, a couple bucks. You can put in whatever watermarks you want. You can have 50 watermarks and choose between them. And find your image. I want the one we just did. Oh, wrong one. There we go. And there's my watermark in the lower left-hand corner. So at this point, I can now save that one back to the camera roll, or I believe this one has an Instagram, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because I can't keep track of which apps have been updated and which ones haven't, this one may have been updated already not to do it square. But if not, I'd save it to the camera roll, open it in Instagram, and it would not be square, and I can make it any way I want. Here, let's see. Yep, this one's still square. So see, that's what I mean. It's not just a Lightroom problem. It's apps that haven't been updated to know that Instagram isn't just square anymore. So this one's doing the same thing. So let's get out of that. That was my lightsaber image, by the way. So I would have to save it to the camera roll. Let's go back to that. Save it to the camera roll. Stay on this photo and save it. With watermark now I can open it up in the Instagram app and post it. Done watermarking, yes. Go back to Instagram, yes. Load the image, yes. This time it's not square. So now I can post that with showing how to post images from Lightroom Mobile to Instagram. And I can share it anywhere else I want to share it. I'll put it on Tumblr and I'll put it on Twitter. And share. And there it is. Okay, so that's Instagram from Lightroom mobile. And we'll put that right back there. We'll get out of the iPhone for now. Check questions. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, another off the topic question, but from Wes. Again, here we go. Sorry, off topic, but I wanted to ask you this. What's the best way to sell your photography commercially? And do you think selling to stock footage websites is a good idea? Selling commercially is tough because if you're trying to sell prints, then you can do them from your website. You can do them in a gallery, so forth and so on. But then you've got to go do the legwork. It's tough, meaning you got to go do the work to sell your images. You got to go to galleries. You got to get them to represent your photos and all that. Selling the stock's a lot easier from the standpoint it doesn't take as much work, leg work, meaning going around trying to promote, but it does take work in terms of volume. If you really want to make money with stock photography, it's a volume business. So putting up your 100 best images on stock, they could be fantastic images. They could be the best images in the world, but only 100 is probably not going to make you a lot of money. Putting up 1,000, putting up 4,000, 5,000 images on stock, now you're talking enough money to be real, to be maybe a job, to be maybe enough money to where that's all you do, especially if they're good. So it just depends on you, your photography, and how much work you want to put in either way. Okay. Have I done HDR with light probes? No, I haven't. All right. And hey, Leroy, thanks for being here. Okay, so with that, let's say you want to now take this image, post it online, and there's no published plugin, and it's not a mobile app. You want to physically upload it. You want to maybe update your profile picture. You want to update a banner on your Facebook page. You want to do all of those things. So let's talk about the banner on Facebook, since that gave me an idea, and it's going to be the same process no matter what. And just uploading in general. So, for example, I like this sunset image over the ocean. Let's take a look at it full screen. Oop, wrong one. I always do that. Facebook, or full screen image over the horizon. I like it. I like the water. I like the little pier here. I like the clouds and everything else. But that image is more of a 4:3 aspect ratio, and your Facebook banner is very wide. Matter of fact, the exact dimensions of your Facebook banner is 851 pixels by 315. So very skinny, very wide. So I see a lot of people, they post images like this on their Facebook banner, and then it's kind of like in a weird position. They don't move it around, or it just doesn't show everything because they didn't format it to be good for a banner. So we're going to show you how to do that in Lightroom, and then how to export it with a watermark. So first and foremost, I don't want to mess up this one. So I'm going to go to this one in the folder. I don't want to mess up this collection, in other words. I'm going to say, show me this in my honeymoon beach shoot collection. There it is. Now, in this collection, I can do anything I want because this collection is not one of the ones that's part of my portfolio. What I want to do here is I want to make a virtual copy because I don't want to mess up this one, which is being used in all the other places. So I go up to my photo menu, I create virtual copy, and that just creates a Lightroom copy of that photo that's not taking up any extra space on the disk or anything that matters. Now I go to crop. So develop module, crop tool, and it's already cropped a little bit to straighten it. But what I want to do here is I want to change my crop from the original to one that I've already customized, 8.51 by 3.15. That aspect ratio is perfect for Facebook. I can still move the image around and show the parts of the image that I want. So if the sky is more important, I show more of the sky. If the pier is more important, I show more of the pier. And I get this just the way I want it composed for this message or for this banner. Okay, so now that I've got it composed, that's the right size. Now how do I get it out? File, export. I've already got one, actually Facebook cover photo. I've already built one. For Facebook cover, I'll go to it so you can see what the settings are. So the settings are, put it in Dropbox. Why Dropbox? Because the Dropbox app is on my phone, just like the Creative Cloud app. I can now put it in the Creative Cloud folder, but I built this a long time ago, before Creative Cloud. Put it in the Dropbox folder. Put it in a folder in the Dropbox folder called Facebook Covers or FB Covers. Don't rename it. The name doesn't matter. It's not about video at this point. Make it a JPEG because that was originally a RAW file. Make it sRGB because sRGB is better for the web. I should really crank up the quality because Facebook degrades the quality. So the higher you start with, the better it'll look. Width and height, resize. I don't know why this one would even be on resize. Don't resize. Because I've already made it the right size. Next, all metadata, but remove person information, remove location information if it were a private place, and put my watermark on it, and then show it to me when you're done. So if I do an export, that will export out the image, which is going to take a few seconds because that image is on a network volume. But I'll look at questions while we're there. And here it comes, and here's my image. So that image is ready to go up on Facebook with my visible watermark in the lower left-hand corner. And that watermark came from Lightroom. And since it's syncing that, or will sync it once I turn Dropbox syncing back on, it'll be here on my computer as well as a mobile device if I wanted to share it from a mobile device. But right now I could go to Facebook, click on my Facebook cover page or cover image and replace it with this one, and this one would be sized the right way. So that's one of the ways to export images for the web from a source, or to upload to a source that doesn't have a publish collection or publish option in Lightroom or a mobile app or whatever. Okay, so now let's go back to the travel portfolio and let's build a website. It took us a while to get here. I was going to start with this and we end up ending with it. Okay, so let's say that I want to post a lot of these online. I'm not going to post them all online just for the sake of time, and the process is the same no matter how many you do. So we're going to go to Adobe Muse. Now, Adobe Muse is part of the regular Creative Cloud account or Creative Cloud Complete. It's unfortunately not part of the photography plan. So if you have the photography plan, you can download a trial and use it for 30 days, but it's not part of that plan, unfortunately. So you'll know how to do it, and maybe you'll be inspired to check out Muse. So Muse CC is a web building tool, website building tool. I have built my photography website with it in part, and in part from Lightroom. So if we go to the browser and we go to terrywhitephotography.com, I'll reload the page so you can see it. This front end, this slideshow that we see initially comes from Muse. This entire page built with Muse as a full screen slideshow. All the buttons here for the social media sites, all Lightroom, all Muse. The social media widgets like Twitter and Facebook, all from Muse. I keep wanting to say something else. The galleries, on the other hand, everything else is Muse, but the galleries themselves. So if we go to my travel portfolio gallery, whoa. All right. I don't know why that's doing that. Let's try another one. Let's try portraits. My galleries are screwed up. I need to fix this. Oh no. All right, but the galleries themselves, when they work, are from Lightroom, and I'm not sure why they're not loading. I haven't changed anything lately. So I have to go check that. But these were all built as Lightroom collections. That way, when I update the Lightroom collection, it updates the gallery. And I'm a little thrown off by that, but I'll check it out after the stream is over. Can't do it now. Okay, so someone commenting on Facebook. Let's close that. And let's go back to Muse. So to build a site, you can just say new site from scratch, or you can, of course, use one of the new starter designs. The starter designs are designed specifically for helping you get started without having to do everything from scratch. So if you wanted to preview what one of the starter designs looks like, for example, exposure kind of sounds photography related, I can go ahead and click preview, and that will go in and show me a sample of what this site looks like. So this site already comes with a slideshow on the main page. It has the word exposure, which of course you'll change to your name and your description. It already has an about page and a gallery page and a contact page. And you can go through, and this looks like a one-page website. So each link just scrolls you down the page. So that's what that one template is for. We're going to use a template because it'll have a lot of stuff in it from scratch. But again, there's nothing stopping you from doing a Muse site from scratch. So if I say build based on exposure, then I can click exposure, and it will give me the site ready to go. Now, of course, ready to go meaning ready to go, change it to what you want it to be. So when I double click on this, I can go in and I can change this to, I don't want to say exposure, it's me. And I can decide if I want upper and lowercase. Yeah, I think uppercase is better for this. And I don't want to say photography Muse site, I just want to say photography. Okay, now of course it's got this slideshow here where we saw the sample images, and it's a full page slideshow, or at least a big, not full page, but a big slideshow. So I can click on the slideshow and say, you know what, I really appreciate some sample images, but I kind of want my own images. So this little arrow in the upper right hand corner will allow you to go in and change any prospects, or I'm sorry, settings of the site. But actually, if you just click on the slideshow, there's a new option now. If you right click, you can say clear widget contents. Before, you would have to manually go in and delete image by image. But now I can say clear widget contents. The slideshow remains there, but all of the images are now gone. So at this point, now it's ready to put in some of those travel images that we had from Lightroom. So if I go to Lightroom, I can say, and again, you have to keep in mind, how your images are going to look on the web is really going to be mostly a landscape proposition. Yeah, on a phone it'll be vertical, but on a computer it's going to be wide. So I would recommend only using portrait images if you absolutely have to. Because then what you're going to have is black bars on both sides, or space on both sides if it's not black bars. So either A, combine multiple ones together to make a wide image, or B, stick to your landscape images, at least for that slideshow. If you want to make another gallery with all your portraits in it, then make one with your portraits. All right, so in this case, I'm going to select this one, not crazy about that one anymore, but that one, and that one. And of course, I can keep going. But now that I've selected those images, I want to export those images out for Muse to use, because Muse, unfortunately, doesn't talk directly to Lightroom. So what I want to do instead is I want to export, just like we did before. And I think I have a for Muse set up, but let's go ahead and make it from scratch. So I'm going to say, export to a specific folder. We're just going to make the desktop for now. And we'll make an image, or make a folder on the desktop. We'll call it for Muse site. All right, and we'll put that on the desktop, and that's the one we'll use. Okay, next. Don't care about naming, don't care about renaming, don't care about videos right now. JPEGs, sRGB again for the web as opposed to Adobe or Pro RGB. Higher quality, yep. Now, here's where it gets to be interesting. You're shooting today with 18, 24, 36, 50 megapixel images. Those are all too big for the web. But in web work, more than likely nowadays, we're seeing a lot of full screen slideshows. So you have this trade-off between, do I want my site to load fast or faster, therefore smaller images? Or do I, since it's photography, do I want my site to really look good with big images on the homepage? So you're definitely going to size them down from the 6,000 by 4,000 size images that you got out of your camera, but by how much? And that's where we get into thinking about the average viewer and what resolution they have their display set to. For example, on a MacBook Pro, the default resolution is 1440 by 900, but it's also high DPI, so double that. So it's 2880 by whatever. On a 4K display or a HD display, we're talking 1920 on up. So you really have to think, what is the average person going to be looking at this on? And I want an image that's at least that big. So you probably, I originally sized this to 2000 by 2000. There's a fairly new size size choice in here. Instead of width and height, I usually like to choose long edge now. And so my longest edge, I don't care about the height, the longest edge, the width of the image, what do I want to limit it to? Because Muse will downsize it to whatever it needs to downsize. It'll optimize it. So you could go higher now than you're used to. So maybe I want to go as high as maybe 3,500. Because again, I don't want a super huge image. Even though Muse will optimize it, it's still going to make it as big as you let it make it. So I don't want it super huge, but I do want it big enough so it looks good full screen. And that's the trade-off. Again, metadata, yeah, remove any personal information, any location information, watermark them, yes or no, that's up to you. Show them when you're done. So take those images and export them to the web. Now I'm going to look over here at questions. All right. Good. Digital Wireless. Glad you're liking this on YouTube. You're welcome for the stream. Can you post a link on JPEG compression? I say you can, but it's up to the moderators. Someone's asking that on Twitch. Yep, just Google Facebook image sizes and you will get all the image sizes. Absolutely. Peter Hall, thanks for joining on YouTube. Oh, I was going to say it's done. So it's almost done exporting the images. And again, that's a background process. You can keep working while it's doing that and go grab the next ones you want to export. I'll check out your link on Lightroom JPEG quality. Jeffrey Friedel's blog. By the way, a lot of those plugins I was showing you for Flickr, not for Flickr, but well, I do have the one for Flickr, but for Facebook pages and Picasa, which is Google, they were all Jeffrey's plugins. So Jeffrey Friedel makes plugins that are donationware, meaning he doesn't ask a lot, for Lightroom. So he's got he's got an image or analysis of Lightroom JPEG export quality settings. So Jeffrey Friedel's blog. And the link's been posted in the chat, but for those of you watching the on-demand, there it is. Do I work with videos as well? Absolutely. Okay. All right. So those images were exported, and they should now be in a folder on my desktop. They are right here. So now the images are there in this For Muse site at the bigger size. So you can see these are pretty large, 3.7 megabytes on down. What I want to do is go to Muse, And now that I've cleared out that widget, I'm going to go in and say that I want to add images. And I can now go to the desktop for the Muse site and grab those images that I just exported. And it will load those 6 files in. It could be 60, it could be 600, it could be as many as you want. And it'll load them in and size them for that widget. So if we were to preview this on the web right now without doing anything else, preview in browser, there it is. So it's loading that slideshow, and that slideshow plays automatically. And the images look okay. Again, they're not the full width. Oh, actually, they are. They should be the full width of this browser. So they look decent. Yeah, that one looks really good. That one looks really good. But again, you got a height width process too. So I'm not seeing the whole height of that image because I've got the browser window so far stretched out. So for example, if we were to, if I can grab the browser window, we do that, see, then I see more of the image because these images aren't designed to be that wide. They are designed to be about that. So now I see that camel that I didn't see before. And that's just an issue of the web. The web solves responsiveness, even though this Muse is not responsive yet. It solves scaling, but it doesn't solve aspect ratio. So unless you tell it to only scale. So in this case, you will have some clipping depending on how you have the slideshow set up. So it just depends on what you want to do. If you want your images to look wide, then you would have to crop them and make them or edit them to be wide. If you don't want them to be wide, then don't do full screen slideshows, because full screen slideshows will always have this issue because it's full screen. It's full, I shouldn't say full screen, full width slideshows will always have this issue because it's the full width of whoever browser is watching it. So in the regular galleries on your page, you can make it not full width and it will display the entire image the way you want. So if we go back to Muse right now, and let's just, for the sake of example, say that down here in the About area, I want to make a new slideshow where my images look right. Then I can go to the widget library. I can go to slideshows, and I can bring over a blank slideshow. And I can put that slideshow anywhere I want. I can make it any size I want. There's some other stuff here that needs to be moved. Oops. Let's move this stuff down. There we go. And we'll put this one over here. All right, so now, same thing. I could go in and I can say, you know what? I don't need that description box at the bottom because I don't want to go in and manually type those descriptions. I have asked the Lightroom team to grab the captions from the metadata. Hopefully we'll see it someday. I do want the left and right arrows, but I don't need a counter. And now I want to go ahead and grab those same images we were just looking at. So now we're looking at a much smaller slideshow, but Muse will optimize them down. Now, again, in this case, that's cropping a little bit because this box is a little bit narrower than the actual aspect ratio of that image. So I could go in, select this. Oops, sorry. If I can get to it, there we go. One too many clicks, sorry. There we go, that's the box I'm trying to get to. And I can go to the fitting, and I can say that instead of fill frame proportionally, I can say fit content proportionally. And then what that's going to tell it to do is to fit the content, not fill it. So then we will have space left over, potentially. Let's go ahead and do that like so. All right, so now if we were to preview this, Okay, again, that one's going to be whatever the width of the browser is, but this one, on the other hand, makes the images look right because the aspect ratio of that slideshow is not changing based on the browser. So if I go in and pull this browser window over, the slideshow just moves. It does not resize. So that's, again, the difference between a full width or full screen slideshow versus a fixed size slideshow that will display your images properly. And by the way, you don't have to have it autoplay. You can turn off the autoplay and just let them click through them one by one. All right. So in Muse, you would build the rest of your site. You've already seen how to do slideshows. You would build the rest of your site the way you want. Now, someone asked on YouTube, what about video? Or someone, maybe YouTube or Twitch, I don't remember. But someone asked about video. And although Muse does not import video directly without some type of third-party add-on, it's not natively supported, in other words. What it can do, oh, by the way, here's some slideshows. I just didn't scroll down far enough. So here's some images or slideshows that were built for this. I'm just going to pull all this down for a minute. Now let's say I want to put a video right there. Well, although I can't put a video in directly, what I can do is go in and go to the social widgets, and I can grab a YouTube video. So when I drag over a YouTube widget, the widget loads whatever size I scale it to. By the way, it will recompose itself based on whatever size I give it. So if I want a nice big video there for people to watch, I can put a nice big video there for people to watch. Now, of course, you probably don't want them watching my how to get started with Muse video. You probably want them watching one of yours. So what you can do is go in and click the little option. The options for Muse widgets are always in the upper right corner. And that that video ID is unique to each video. So you would go find the video ID for your video on YouTube or Vimeo. Vimeo has the same thing. And replace it, and then it would be your video. So for example, if I go back to YouTube, which is where we were earlier, and I go to I go click on this video, here's that unique ID right there. Copy it. I don't need to watch the video. And go back to Muse. And go to that flyout menu. And paste it. Muse will go find that video and replace that video with, replace the default video with the one you just told it to go use. So yes, it would be your video based on your video ID. What is tethered capture in Lightroom? Paul Weaver is asking. Tethered capture is when you take a compatible DSLR, usually Nikons and Canons and Leica, and you connect a long USB cable to your computer, and then in Muse, I'm sorry, looking at Muse, in Lightroom, you go under the file menu and you say tether capture start. That will bring up a dialog box where you can put in all your settings, connect your camera up, and as you're taking pictures with your camera, they're automatically coming into Lightroom. And you can see them big screen, you can see them full screen. So instead of looking at that little 3.5-inch display on the back of your camera, you're looking at them and they're already on your computer in Lightroom. So that's what tethered capture is for. I use it all the time in studio. All right, so back to Muse. So now we've got that video there. Again, the video that I went and found on YouTube. And so if we preview the page in browser, it has to be a compatible camera. Yes, compatible, not compact. Compatible. So a compatible DSLR from the list of DSLRs supported by Lightroom. And here's the video. So even if the video looks like it might be cropped off a little bit, don't worry, it will play. It should play the right size. Unless I didn't size it just right. So that's the video playing back on this page, complete with all the controls, because all that is just YouTube embedded in your Muse page. So yeah, it's playing the right size. I got bars on the left and right hand side because it's always going to scale it down to play the right size on your page. So yes, you can have videos, you can have your own custom slideshows, and obviously you can go change all the text to what you want it to say. Now it looks like we're coming close to the end of the stream. We've got about 10 minutes left. So let me go, actually let me stop that from playing. All right, so now we go back to Muse, and no, and again, not compact camera, compatible camera. So this is a Nikon D600, hardly compact, but it's compatible. So it has to be a compatible camera to be supported by Lightroom tethering. Not compact. All right, next. So once you go into the template and finish or start from scratch and lay out your site with every option and every widget you want. So even speaking of widgets, let's do one last thing before we talk about publishing. With the widgets, I can go in and say, for example, that I want to put my Twitter on here as well. So I want people to follow me on Twitter. So I can drag over the Twitter widget. It will ask me what username, and it defaults to Adobe Muse, which you should follow on Twitter. But you should also follow me, Terry White. Once I do that, that widget populates, or should populate, with my user ID and come in and allow people to follow me. Did it work? Let's try it one more time. All right. Sometimes it doesn't update on the page, but it will definitely be updated on the site. Same thing for Facebook. So if I wanted a Facebook follow or like, I can say, or actually, yeah, a like would mean they would like this page on Facebook versus a Facebook follow, meaning your profile. So I can align these anywhere I want. And last but not least, if we preview this page in the browser, all right, got some more questions on tethering. I'll answer in just a second. On Twitch there. How does Muse recognize what to load first on the page when you go to the URL? Okay, if it's a menu, if my menu button at the top or at the top to load first, then picks, is that possible? Muse, actually, I don't think really determines that. I think it's really based, obviously, in your code, because your browser, well, meaning Muse determines it only by writing the code. So it's writing the code from top to bottom of what's on your page. Usually the browsers dictate what's important to load first, looking at that code. So no, you don't get to dictate, load the slideshow first before anything else. You don't get to make those choices. But it is writing the code from top to bottom. So there's my, yeah, like I said, the Twitter worked even though it didn't display it inside of Muse. And here's the way to like this page. So I just like that page, and I can add a comment to it as well. Slideshows, video. Okay, back to a couple more questions, and we'll talk about publishing. Where will I find a compatible list? Google is your friend. Just Google Lightroom compatible cameras. Or Victoria has already done that. She Googled and put the list down there. So thanks, Victoria. With the A7, you can tether with the mobile app as well. Yeah, the Sony A7 R2, which I had in-house for a review, it doesn't tether directly to Lightroom, but it will, whenever a camera doesn't work directly, if the camera manufacturer has software that loads on your computer and like just dumping the images into a folder, then Lightroom you can also in Lightroom, here, let's go back to it. Before Lightroom had tethering, what we used to do was auto import. So you can choose a folder that images are going to come into however they get there, from your camera software, wirelessly, the web, whatever. And then Lightroom can bring in any new images that appear in that folder. So if your camera is not directly supporting tether capture, but you have software that can bring images in from your camera directly as you take them, put them in a folder, then Lightroom to that folder and bring in those images into Lightroom. And before that's what we used to use before Lightroom had tethering. All right. Next. Let's see. Okay. And we're back. Let's continue on. So now, once you're done building your site, and of course I didn't edit the text because that's kind of obvious. You would change the text to be all about you. Put in any hyperlinks you want. So if you want to put in links to your other sites, your other pages, you can do that as well. So I'll do that one last thing because we're only got like 5 minutes left. So let's say I wanted to link to my blog. I'll just say, and here is my blog in the text. Then what I want to do, hang on for a second here. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just highlight that text. Here's my blog, and again, this could be linked to anything. And I'm going to go up here to the add links and filters, or links, add or filter links. I can then type in any URL I want. So I can say http://terrywhite.com. And that's it. So you can put in links on images, put in links in your text, change your text to be whatever you want. Now, for the last 3 minutes, let's talk about publishing. Once you're all done building your site, adding your links, adding your images, adding your slideshows, adding your videos, adding everything about you, including maps, all the things that Lightroom or Muse can do, you can then have 3 choices. If you have Muse, then that means you also have a Creative Cloud account, and with your Creative Cloud account with Muse, you can host up to 5 sites, 5 different sites. So if I just go to Publish to Business Catalyst, that's included in your Creative Cloud subscription. That includes Muse. So that's one way, right off the bat. And yes, you can go get a custom domain and point it to that space. So even if you don't want to go find your own hosting service, there's one built into Creative Cloud if you have Muse. The next one, let's say you do have your own hosting service. You're on Bluehost, which is my favorite. You're on GoDaddy, which is not my favorite. You're on whatever. You can upload via FTP to whatever host that you use in the world. So they get, when you signed up for that site, they gave you FTP, an FTP account, put in those credentials and upload. Last but not least, you can export the entire site as a folder of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, whatever you put in the site, and hand it to a developer and say, I built all of this the way I want it. You do the rest. Add your custom shopping cart, integration with something else, whatever. So you have 3 choices of how to get from designing in Muse to online. So again, the site that I showed you earlier, which my galleries need to be fixed. I'll go do that as soon as I disconnect from this. But this is all about, or this was all done in Muse. So the homepage, the About Me, the Contact, those 3 pages are Muse pages from my site. So if I go to the About Me, then it shows the About Me with some other cool things to look at, the Contact page, so forth and so on. So that's all for Muse, and that's what Muse does. So less than 1 minute left. I will look at the questions. Hope you enjoyed how to get your images online using the tools from Adobe for putting images on the web, whether it's through Lightroom, exporting, Muse, building sites, whatever you want it to do. All right, and with that, who's up next? On Twitch, that is. I'm going to end the stream on YouTube, but there are other people on Twitch following me. Star Crunch, you're welcome. You're welcome, Victoria. You're welcome, dear Cognac. Koyang. Sorry. I was reading one thing and saying another. Cool. Glad you found it inspiring. Like Electric Twitch. And who's up next? Molten Ink. All right, Molten Ink. And with that, I'm going to disconnect. It is that time. Take it away. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.